Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for January 10, 2022, the Jerks at Work edition. And we begin with that story, a really interesting story from the New York Times, as it's not the great resignation that is driving companies crazy. It's that middle managers are jerks at work. Imagine that. You ever worked for a jerk? Have you ever not worked for a jerk? Well, the answer to the second one is probably no. You've worked any time. And this is the thing that is driving most employees away. And as the article points out, and I thought in a really prescient point, that companies train middle managers to be operational managers. They don't train them to be interpersonal managers. So soft skills are important. That includes not being a jerk. Next up, from Reuters, the U.S. Appeals Court found that a pension plan's 2019 lawsuit against Boeing officers and directors, alleging they had made false public statements about the 737 MAX, can proceed to trial. Obviously, this is one more thing that the Boeing board has to deal with. They were absolutely skewered in the Delaware Supreme Court or the Delaware trial court by their actions of violating the their Caremark duty of standard, or at least they couldn't get it dismissed. So now U.S. Federal Supreme Court has survived this allegation. So more bad news for Boeing. Next up, what about SPACs? Well, the Wall Street Journal reports that aerospace startups who were hoping to go SPACs need to reconsider because the market has really dropped. There have been several problematic SPACs going public, and it now looks like the market's going to drop off quite a bit going forward. So the SPAC honeymoon looks like it may be, if not over, certainly moving to a close. And we end with yet another story of sleaze by the sleaze master himself, Boris Johnson. From a first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News, the Art newspaper, Boris Johnson accused of corruption after having backed an exhibit proposed by a Conservative Party donor. David Brownlow, who sits in the House of Lords, provided funds as a part of the makeover of Johnson's private residence, and now BoJo is supporting an exhibition by this same Conservative Party donor. If there's no quid pro quo there, it's certainly the appearance of sleaze, and that's really seems to be the daily countenance of BoJo. If there's sleaze involved, he is going to be in it. And the fact that someone gave him 112,000 pounds worth of free goods and services, and he later backs their exhibit, I'm sure it was all about the quality of the exhibit. Go BoJo. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.